geeks. No one talks Trek like we do.
Hello and welcome to We Are Starfleet. I'm your captain for the week, Craig McKenzie, here to lead a discussion about the second episode of Season 4 of Strange New Worlds, titled The Griffin Incident. I have taken command from the real captain, and he's probably wondering why I'm here, which is the custom in Strange New Worlds, but he is also here joining me, wondering why I've usurped his command. It's Mike Slammer, hello!
Hey Craig, hello! Yeah, what's with that? That's my seat.
I was just introduced in an earlier season, and I just won't leave. That's the way it works.
Gosh darn it. Before you know it, there's going to be a whole other podcast where it's going to be just you and everybody else, and I'm going to be totally forgotten about in a chair somewhere.
Nah, that's never going to happen. They're never going to greenlight that. They'll never let it happen. Changes in regimes will prevent that from happening. Don't worry about it.
That's true.
And my own laziness. That will also call it into question.
Hey-o.
Before we get started on this episode, we should talk about our presenting sponsors. Do you want to tell the listeners, since you're in the US, can reap the benefits of the discount? Well, I can. I just have to pay a fortune for shipping.
Yeah, shipping plus tariffs plus customs, blah, blah,
plus
blah.
Plus it getting seized because it's a pointy object.
Yeah. Our presenting sponsor here on We Are Starfleet and Trek Geeks Podcast Network is Fansets, fansets.com. Fansets is a really cool shop online, fansets.com. Our pins have character is their tagline. Tons of great fandom, aesthetic pins, patches. It's fun. I'm looking right now at the website. They've got some new things on sale. I love how they're showing the Black Friday special. We're recording this in July, so I love that. Black Friday blowout, $2.95, a Kelvin Universe Captain Kirk pin from Star Trek Beyond. They've got the animated series Alik Ohm. And Craig, what I like about Fansets is the pins that they make, they are quality die-cast pins. But it's not just like, hey, here's the Delta that you're already familiar with. Here's the UFP logo that you're already familiar with. Here's Captain Kirk. Of course there's Captain Kirk. But what I really like about it is that there's different iterations of each. You've got the Strange New Worlds version of Kirk. You've got Star Trek Beyond version of Kirk. You've got an emoji version of Kirk. Why? I don't know. But why not also?
You could get them and make them all kiss.
Lone Star! Don't come in when I'm playing with my toys!
Or is that just me that does that with, well, pins, but action figures?
Oh, man. They got a couple other things, too. They got Ultraman they're working on. There's some cool things that they're doing, like there's some kaiju monsters from Ultraman. That's really neat. It's fun stuff. They got some patches. Make sure you guys check it out, fansets.com. And there's a free shipping price point where if you spend $30 or more at fansets.com, you automatically get free shipping in the US. And Craig, this is super important. If you use the special discount code TrekGeeks with all capital letters and no spaces, you get an extra 10% off, which might cut the cost of shipping and customs for you. Maybe.
And $30 is like two things, so it's very easy to get your free shipping.
Oh, yeah. Super easy. But yeah, thank you, Fansets, for helping sponsor our show, part of the Trek Geeks network here. Thank you so much. And we hope you guys check out fansets.com.
Yeah. Do that. Go there and spend money and then regret it afterwards, like I always do when I spend money.
Hey, it grows the economy. It helps everybody.
Yes, that's what happens.
It helps everybody.
Nobody higher up is absolutely pocketing any of that stuff. That's not what's happening at all.
I might pocket some of it.
Yeah, we'll pocket that sweet discount.
Oh, man.
You can also follow this podcast at Starfleet Pod on Blue Sky and Instagram, and check out the website, wearestarfleetpod.com, for more about the show, us the hosts, and links to many podcast episodes. We have over 100, quite a lot.
Yeah, how crazy is that? We've been doing this for a while.
Yeah. Since, well, you started at Discovery Season 3, didn't you? Or was it before then?
I did. Started right in the middle of Discovery, and then it just grew from there. We started talking about Strange New Worlds. We started talking a little bit about Picard, but not really. We didn't really get into that too much. We talked about Prodigy.
Yes, and we're going to talk in more detail about Prodigy one day.
One day.
One day.
And Lower Decks.
Yeah, and smatterings of older Trek as well, when mood takes us.
Oh, yes. Like, for example, we just released our episode celebrating the 30th anniversary of Star Trek First Contact. Looking back on some of these films, at these big pivotal moments, I don't know about you, Craig, but it makes me think about them differently if I spend a long time between watches. And Star Trek First Contact at 30 years old, when the entire franchise is 60 years old, I think that's a really cool demarcation line almost, because you can see the influence of that film today versus what came before and what came after. It has truly fundamentally shifted the Star Trek universe.
Yep. And as of today, I've booked my tickets for the 40th anniversary screening of The Voyage Home.
The Voyage Home. Oh, it's such a good one.
The tickets at my local cinema went up on sale today, and I scooped them up. They're doing 2 screenings, and I'm going to both of them. Yes. Because when I'm ever going to see it on the big screen again.
True.
So in terms of my Star Trek movie on the big screen collection, I've only got 5 and 6 to go. Then I've seen them all.
Wow.
At least once on the big screen.
I wonder if they would actually put Star Trek V in theaters.
I don't see why not.
I don't see why not. They're doing it for 1, 2, 3, and 4. But 5, Final Frontier, nobody likes Final Frontier, except for me.
I like Final Frontier. I think it has some good moments.
Oh, Craig, are we going to have a conversation about Final Frontier?
When it's due an anniversary, yeah.
All
which
right.
will be, I don't know, in a couple of years or something. I don't know what year it released, because I'm a bad fan like that. Because being a fan is all about memorizing dates and knowing stuff. It's not about just enjoying something.
That's true. You got to prove your knowledge.
We do. It's all about just amassing knowledge. That's all it is.
Speaking of proving knowledge, this episode that we're about to talk about, extremely reliant, pun intended, on more Wrath of Khan goodness.
Yeah, they just can't let it go.
They can't let it go.
Never let
Craig.
this film go, unfortunately.
No.
But we'll get to that.
We will. Let's talk about it. I'm excited.
Episode 2 of Season 4 of Strange New Worlds is called The Griffin Incident, and it features Kirk, La'an, and Spock returning from some conference, and they stumble across a long-lost ship called the Griffin that, for budget reasons, looks exactly like the Enterprise on the inside, and a lot like it on the outside as well. So we get a chance to muck around in the sets and make them a bit more ominous, and save a bit of money with a bottle show, really. It's tale as old as time for Star Trek. It's not the first time they've done it on this show as well, because you had the Gorn one in Season 1, the title of which is escaping me at the moment, but that one, Episode 9, I believe, of Season 1. The one where Hammer dies.
Oh, yes. All Those Who Wander.
There we go. The Griffin Incident, then. What are your overall thoughts?
Oh, man. I really like this episode. It's definitely a bottle episode. It is absolutely one that I would recommend, maybe not necessarily to first-time viewers of Star Trek in general, but if someone was asking me about Strange New Worlds and they had Trek knowledge, I would say, yeah, I think you might like this episode, especially if you're a horror fan. If you're a horror fan, I really think you would. It worked really well for me. I love episodes, especially in science fiction, where we kind of see the hero ship, if you will, being destroyed and demolished, just like the Doomsday Machine in the original series, when the USS Constitution was all blown up by the Doomsday Machine.
The Constellation, just to be accurate.
Oh, was it the Constellation?
Yeah.
See, there you go. You got your fan cred.
There we go. I won it back. I've forgotten a year, but I've won it back with a ship name.
Just like in that episode, when you see the Constellation decrepit, decayed, its crew is missing, and they beam over and they're like, what happened? What happened? What happened? It's a psychological impact for the viewer because you see the hero ship is the Enterprise, of course. Well, what if it was destroyed and its crew was missing? That's the sort of question that they're asking of us when they put the Constitution-class vessel as the decrepit, destroyed one. Because it very easily could have been a shuttlecraft, it very easily could have been any other class of vessel, but they specifically chose the Constitution class to show us you are not indestructible. These ships are not invincible in any which way, shape, or form. The crew is, they've got the plot armor, but at this point in time, the ship itself is not as precious as you think it is. So be careful, space is spooky. And I think this episode delivers well on the spookiness.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a very strong horror experience. I found it unsettling in a lot of places. And what you were saying about corrupting the sets, corrupting the location we're familiar with, you're trained to treat the Enterprise as safe. When they're on the Enterprise, they're safe, even though they're usually in danger in some way, but it's safe, it's well lit, it's big, and you turn the lights off, suddenly it starts feeling a lot more claustrophobic, it starts feeling a lot more empty because there's only 3 people on board, perhaps more. Who knows? But they only think there's 3 people on board. There's also a mystery around why is there power? What's going on here? How does this beacon run for years? How did all of this happen? So it keeps you going with a mystery. It gets pretty grim in places.
Yeah.
It really hits the characters where they live, which I've found very effective, at least for the most part. I think there are issues with Spock as usual, because I don't think the writers on this show really understand what the root of his identity crisis, for want of a better term, is, and we'll definitely get to that. But generally, I thought this was a very good episode, a very strong horror experience, and come away from it feeling a little bit unsettled. I've seen it twice now, and the second time I accidentally had a quite immersive experience. The first time I watched it was in the afternoon, so it didn't have the same impact, or the intended impact. But the second time I watched it was at night, because that was just the only time I could do it to take notes. And at the point where they got rescued, I've got my lights on a timer, and it was literally as soon as they got beamed out, my lights came on. And there was a point where a noise was heard in the background and my cat Spock knocked something over.
Oh my
so
gosh.
It was like, I'm in 40X here. What's going on?
Oh my gosh. You got to charge for that experience. Did you pay yourself 20 quid or something?
Yeah, but it was just such great timing where it's like, now they're safe and the lights are on. What's going on?
Did you ever see the movie Event Horizon?
Yes, crazy movie.
Yeah, this episode definitely has homages to Event Horizon.
Yeah, and it has some homages to other Trek horror stuff. It reminded me a lot of Empok Nor, for example, because that does the same thing. It takes you to the familiar set but corrupts it and makes it all dark, and then there's people trying to kill you and stuff like that. It's not a one-to-one connection, but it reminded me of something like that. There's a few examples of where they've turned the familiar set, just for budget reasons, into something a bit more horrific, and it can be very effective. I think it's good to not spend all of the money and find more creative ways to tell a story, and it feels like they did that here.
Yeah, I agree. The episode title, The Griffin Incident, on the face of it, I feel like some of the episode titles just feel a little lazy to me.
It's like they're placeholders and they just kept them.
Yeah, and they just went with it. Like The Griffin Incident. This is way more than an incident, guys.
Yeah, Ship of the Dead or something they could have called it that. And I like when they discovered the Griffin, you had all this, some theories say that this happened, or other theories say that this happened.
That was a good touch.
Anytime that there's a ghost ship found, you get all this speculation that comes up. So it's like the Mary Celeste, isn't it? Where it's what happened here. Other famous ghost ships, I guess. Well, actually, the Griffin is a reference to a Captain Griffin. I don't know how I stumbled across this, but there is a Captain Griffin ghost ship story where he was trying to commandeer a ship that was adrift. And he kept losing it in a storm, and he found it a couple of times. And every time he did, the crew were missing.
Huh. So interesting.
I don't know if it's a deliberate reference or an accident.
Captain A.J. Griffin and the Ellen Austin. This is 1881. According to maritime folklore, Captain A.J. Griffin of the British ship Ellen Austin was sailing across the Atlantic when he encountered an unidentified schooner drifting aimlessly with no crew aboard. He sent a salvage crew to board the abandoned ship and sail it to port. However, a storm separated the two vessels. When the Ellen Austin found the ship again, the salvage crew had vanished. He sent a second crew, but they too disappeared in the fog, leaving the ghost ship, in quotes, drifting on its own. Historical investigations indicate this tale is mostly a Bermuda Triangle myth. Lloyd's of London shipping records do not show any loss of crew for the Ellen Austin during this period. The story appears to be highly exaggerated by mystery-loving publications.
That's usually the case.
Cool, a little bit of history. Hey, I like that. That's neat.
Don't ask me how I stumbled across this. I just did. I think I was looking up the Mary Celeste just to make sure that I was right in what that was. And then that was listed next to it or something.
Interesting.
An interesting connection. Whether intentional or not, it surely is too coincidental to be unintentional.
Well, if it is intentional, this feels like really deep cut of lore here of specific British naval maritime history, not necessarily pop culture lore that people would get.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know it just by itself.
Yeah.
Everybody has heard of the Mary Celeste, but so much other ones. I think that's probably the most famous ghost ship.
Yeah. They could have called it the USS Mary Celeste. Ooh.
I wouldn't get on a ship that's called that.
Sure.
Calling your ship Titanic. The USS Titanic is launching. Yeah, no.
You're like, oh.
Can I be assigned to another ship? That'd be great.
Please and thank you. What did you think about the construct of the demon or the possession or the spirit, whatever it is, we can get into it. But what did you think about how it preyed upon the crew, upon La'an and Kirk and Spock?
I really liked that, and I like that they didn't answer the mystery at the end. It's just one of those space is weird and we don't know the answer to everything. You had Division 12, which was referenced, and I double-checked, it's Division 14 in Lower Decks that takes Boimler when he's partially dematerialized.
Okay.
I guess that's a evolution of Division 12, or they had another couple of divisions, I don't know. But it's this idea of this, I guess, Star Trek X-Files, in a way, where you just will turn over mysteries to these people and they might solve them. And Pike said at the end, a few of them have been solved and there's 2 that remain unsolved. So it's this idea of, we'll go out here, but we won't be able to answer every question. There's just some things that will evade understanding. And they do that here with whatever the entity is. It's interesting how Spock immediately latches onto trying to find the logical explanation for it.
Yeah.
There's somehow a surviving crew member. There's a hallucinogen that's making us hallucinate in the atmosphere somehow. He's trying to puzzle it out. He's trying to figure out a justifiable explanation for it, where Kirk's like, maybe we just saw a ghost. We should just be open to that possibility. And Spock's like, nah. You're crazy. There's no such thing as ghosts. There's interdimensional beings, there's non-corporeal beings, there's whatever, but no ghosts. They don't exist.
No ghosts. There's never a ghost. No, of course not.
That's stupid. Stop being stupid, Kirk. But it was good the way that they hit the characters where they live. They're preying on some very on-the-surface anxieties that they all have. So Kirk is worried about how good a father he is, having recently become one. La'an is worried about becoming a tyrannical dictator, which is pretty new one on her. But the way they handle it here, it has its moments. And Spock is, as always, conflicted over his heritage, which I think was maybe the weakest one, although I do have thoughts about that, in terms of how Spock might see himself, which we'll get to. But yeah, we are very much cycling back to Spock's first girlfriend in this show.
I mean, can you blame them for wanting to bring her back on screen?
Yes and no. The thing is, with the original series, when he goes to see T'Pring in a mock time, they haven't seen each other in years. They just have to get married. It's a business arrangement, so to speak, rather than anything else. Whereas here, well, they initially made them a couple.
Right.
Who saw each other quite often, and they worked through relationship issues in their own ways, which is a kind of CW approach to rebooting Spock, isn't it?
Yeah.
He has to have his share of ladies.
I think it's interesting that, do we want to talk about Spock?
We might as well. We'll have to cycle through all characters. Might as well start with him.
Yeah, let's start with Spock. Well, first of all, brilliant way to showcase a little bit of Spock's internal anxieties by separating him from Kirk and La'an as they're trying to explore the ship and puzzle out the mystery.
La'an's never seen a horror movie, clearly. Yeah, let's split up.
Yeah. Spock, come on, man. You know that's illogical. In this situation, come on. You know that's illogical. What are you doing, man? I enjoyed the construct of him being separated in sickbay. What I found interesting about him being in sickbay is Nurse Chapel spends a lot of time in sickbay. Of course, she's a nurse. That's her job. So at the start of this, I saw, okay, it's a ghost ship episode. There's going to be a spooky Nurse Chapel. Can't wait for spooky Jess Bush to come around the corner. That's going to be great. So a little bit of a subversion of the expectation here by bringing T'Pring into the picture, and the methodology by which this is done. And by the way, folks, I don't know if you picked up on this or not, but we are literally talking about the episode. So if you haven't seen it, this is crazy spoiler central here. You should probably turn back now or forever hold thy peace. So T'Pring showing up in the body bag, I watched it when I was on a plane. I had goosebumps. I was like, ooh, is anyone watching this around me? Because I wonder what they're thinking right now. I thought it was really effective. And when Spock realizes that T'Pring is there and the immediate shutdown of, this is just illogical. You are not here. And then T'Pring, I don't know if you caught on to this, Craig, but T'Pring definitely seemed to be not at all logical T'Pring, but the vocal manifestation of the anxiety that Spock was feeling. On my second watch, I just couldn't help but feel like Gia Sandu was playing it differently.
She definitely was, and I like how the manifestation, and that's what I call them in my reviews, the manifestations that crop up of various people, but the manifestation of T'Pring, Spock's not falling for it initially. He's like, you're not real. There's no way you can be real. And she's like, I'll tell you a story from my childhood. And he's like, yeah, but I already know that. So it's fine that you know that. You haven't proven anything. And then she says, real or not, you might as well let me help you open the door. And that's what breaks Spock. He's like, yeah, that's right. Might as well.
Yeah.
Until such times as you fade away. Cool. And at that point, he's disarmed. He becomes vulnerable emotionally and physically, and when she attacks and pins him down and tries to cut the Vulcan out of him, the conversation they have is interesting because it says a bit about how Spock sees himself. I'll preface it by saying that they're still going down the whole Vulcan and human as if there's an influence that his DNA is giving him, which I think is a very limited thing. But I do wonder, and I would like to see them explore this, I do wonder if Spock is worried that he is boiled down to that simple binary. Am I one or the other? Where the reality is he is a person that's influenced by his upbringing, so his father and his mother. And he got more from his mother because Sarek's a douche. There's no two ways about it. He just is. Well, to Spock anyway. To Burnham, he was apparently very nurturing, at least by his own standards. But yeah, him and Sarek never really got along, so he takes a lot from his mother. And the manifestation of T'Pring talks about how she wasn't used to the way he was because he was brought up differently. She was brought up traditionally Vulcan, you would assume, whereas he wasn't. So there's a disconnect there. So she's supposed to have let him go to explore his human side, which is what he's been doing over the past couple of seasons. So he's been exploring emotion and trying to figure out who he is and what balance he can strike.
Sure.
So if it is about Spock believes that his DNA is at war within him and he's confused about that, then that sort of makes sense. But I don't think they've got the skill to really reflect on it in that way, because the episode ends with Spock basically saying, I'm just going to be Vulcan now. She brought me back to logic.
Yeah, you're onto something there, but Strange New Worlds can't bring us the entire way. They can only start us on this journey because Spock's character continues to develop. The original series Spock is not the only Spock. It's also Unification Spock. It's also Kelvin Universe Spock. The full ramifications of Spock's character and his story through the Star Trek universe as an individual, they can't touch that here. So we only get tastes, we only get flavors, and I feel like, and tell me if you disagree with this, Strange New Worlds can only touch on this sort of human exploration, and because of that, it will never be satisfying.
Yeah, he has to abandon it to some degree. But if you look at Spock in the original series, he was very in touch with his humanity, for want of a better word. And they were in the 60s, so they were doing the whole mixed race people. They're always conflicted between whatever race they are. If you're half Spanish, half Irish or whatever, you're going to be conflicted between them, which just isn't the case. You're just a person, and it's more the nurture side of your upbringing that will influence you. So Spock will be, like I say, heavily influenced by his mother, but the Spock in the original series, because he's half human, he decides to become the ultimate Vulcan.
Right.
And he's the ultimate Starfleet officer. He has a overachiever complex. He really needs to just be the best at everything, and you get that sense that he has to prove himself within his culture because his culture looked down on him.
Yeah.
And you get it in the animated series where he was bullied as a child as well. It's the same with Worf as well. Worf feels separate from the Klingon Empire, so he's the ultimate Klingon. He is the most Klingon you'll ever meet, or at least his version of it. So Spock being the ultimate Vulcan, but he still has a kind of external view of Vulcan society in a way because, well, we know he got picked on when he was a kid, and they established in Discovery that he's dyslexic as well, which will be playing on it in some way or another. I've been disappointed in Strange New Worlds reducing it to that simple DNA binary, which is what they do here. But I sort of looked at it as maybe Spock sees himself that way, which is holding him back.
You know, that's a great point.
And he has to get to the point where he doesn't see himself as one or the other, as a mixture of DNA strands. He's someone that gets to decide who he wants to be and what aspects of the two cultures that created him he can master and he can internalize and he can make into his own thing, which is what you see in the original series, pretty much. He enjoys a joke and he has a laugh sometimes. He'll even crack a smile when the occasion calls for it. He's in control of who he is.
Yeah.
We're not at that yet with Strange New Worlds. He does have doubts about who he is, and yeah, he's exploring his humanity, and I wish they wouldn't strike it down to the simple binary. And you really need someone to sit him down and say, it's not as simple as you being human or Vulcan. That's too simple. You're not either of those things.
Well, I think everybody in life, you brought it up, mixed race individuals, they're not just responding to the internal identity, they're also responding to the external identity. And what I mean by that is people perceive us a certain way. I am white, bald, tattoos, beard. So people perceive me differently from my wife, who is black, curly hair, Latino. So it's a different sort of perception. We love sci-fi, we love video games, we love books, we love reading. We have so much of that same stuff in common. People will only respond to the external stimuli. So for Spock, people see him, well, hey, you got the ears, you're Vulcan, man. Congrats. You're a Vulcan. I don't know any better. Oh, you're half human? Wow. Oh my God. That's that's so cool. Oh, geez. Oh, you're so emotional. This, that, and the other thing. And to Spock, it's like, I'm just Spock, man. I'm just out here trying my best. So I appreciate that dynamic, that struggle. And while you were talking, I couldn't help but think about Tyrion Lannister from Game of Thrones, where he tells Jon Snow, you're a bastard. They're going to call you that for the rest of your life. If you wear it like armor, it can't be used against you. So I think about that too, and there's real truth to that. I think people do sometimes wear their differences as armor because it's how they're perceived and it's how they're seen. So make it work for you. And I think that's what we're seeing is how does Spock make being Vulcan work for him, surrounded by all of these humans and all of their emotional needs.
And obviously the conversation he has with the manifestation of T'Pring, God, that's a mouthful to keep saying, that's what he thinks of himself. So on some level, he thinks that their relationship ended because of what she says to him in this episode. So it's kind of revelatory there. And this is when Spock's defenses have been broken. So he indulges in the conversation instead of saying, we're not having this conversation. You're not real. Just concentrate on opening the door, please. So they mull it over. They have the conversation and it's, I had to let you explore your human side. So on some level, Spock feels like he needed to go and sow his wild oats, so to speak. And maybe he felt like T'Pring was holding him back in a way, because he does mention about the whole, or she mentions about, I never accepted your human side. And you did see that in season 1 where she talked about your quarters look very human. He says, oh, I'm redecorating.
Yeah.
To deflect it from that. So there'll be those little microaggressions that have probably wound him up over time, and it will contribute to that view of himself that's coming out through this manifestation of her.
So when he cut his ears off, what do you think that was all about?
That was literally trying to cut the Vulcan out of him, trying to get rid of this thing that he feels in some level is holding him back. And that's where they're getting into the tragic half-breed DNA thing. It's a visceral thing. And then you have the Una manifestation saying, if I wasn't Illyrian, I'd get to be a captain. Then she cuts herself.
Wow.
As if to cut the Illyrian out of her. So on some level, he feels like this internal war is more significant than it really is.
The special effects team working on that? Ooh, great job, guys. Great job. It was extremely effective. That entire sequence of him getting strapped down to the medical bed. Oh, my God. Genuinely disturbing.
And I'm not good with gore, so yeah, seeing the ear cutting and things like that was pretty grim. Or Pike cutting his hands off.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Not real Pike.
Oh, yeah. Incredible. The goriness was completely appropriate.
Yeah. So I think the Spock of it all was kind of muddled because they are still falling back on that, not really understanding what his internal issue really is or what it really should be. They're still falling back on that dated Vulcan versus human thing that they were throwing in the 60s, where they either didn't know any better or chose not to know any better, whereas now they should be more nuanced and they should think about it a bit more, especially when identity is a big issue in society at the moment, where people are fighting for the right to be themselves in any other way that you might think, whether it be trans people or gay people or whatever label you want to apply to someone. People are fighting for the right to be whatever they want to be. And you could see Spock as a bit of a trans allegory in that way. I say not from that position of authority, but I have seen people reference that. People that are in more in the know than I am reference that about.
Sure. I think whether it's intended to be or not is sort of, to quote 7 of 9, irrelevant. Because if someone sees that and sees himself in it, that's really what it's about. That's what these stories are meant for. And that's part of who Spock is as a character and what he's traditionally represented for many fans over the past 60 years.
Yeah, and how he brings himself out of the hallucinations by repeating that poem or whatever it was that T'Pring referenced.
Yeah, a Vulcan meditative passage. I can't remember the specific phrase that he used, but it's a logic reasoning tool, and it's meditative, and it helps him break the spell. Whatever the spell is, it snaps. And as soon as it goes, the visual representation for the viewer watching sickbay go from clean and pristine in his hallucinogenic mind to, no, it's a mess and there's dead bodies everywhere. There's decaying body parts and things are strewn across the floor. Wow.
Yeah, and that final scene he had with Chapel, when she gave him a new ear. I'm not clear on how the medical technology works in Strange New Worlds, where they lose body parts and just get them back. It's fine. Just don't worry about it. But the conversation they had where he was clearly still spooked after the ordeal. So it's whatever everybody went through, nobody really resolved anything to any significant or satisfying degree. They all come away from this without answers. So Spock wants to know how things work.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't get that. He will never get that closure on this incident, or at least not now. He might later. Who knows? But he doesn't get any closure right now, and he's spooked by it. And he does talk about brought me back to logic. So maybe it is him going to explore that side of himself now. He's going to lean on what his Vulcan training can offer him as a person. Or maybe he won't. I have no idea. So it was muddled. I think I was the most muddled of the three. The other two were much more clean cut.
I really love Kirk's story through this. I'm a Captain Kirk fan. Kirk is my number one guy. I will throw down with people who are like, oh, Kirk versus Picard, blah, blah, blah. Nah, it's Kirk all the way. Sorry, disagree with me. And if you disagree with me that hard, I hope you leave a comment on our Blue Sky at Starfleet Pod. Feel free to argue with me. The algorithm loves a good argument.
Yeah, that debate's going to rage forever.
Oh, yeah.
Personally, I think there's room for both. I think they both have their own unique way of commanding, and that's fine.
The baby cry. Let's talk Kirk a little bit. Whenever there's that soul wee, wee, with a heavy reverb and echo placed on it, you just know that this is a setup for some real emotional shit. And in this case, it's Captain Kirk. I'm sorry, Lieutenant Kirk.
I think he's Lieutenant Commander now, isn't he?
He?
I'm not sure. He's first officer now, isn't he, on the Farragut? So.
All right, well, Commander.
Not sure.
Either way.
I've never figured out how the stripes work on the original series, on the sleeves.
It depends on what season you're watching.
Yeah.
But Kirk, in this episode, he's a new dad. Carol has had David, and Carol, she got the assignment of her dreams. I thought this was really interesting. Okay, first let me back up, because we have to talk about Wrath of Khan before we can talk about this. In Wrath of Khan, it's established that Kirk has a son named David, and Kirk has not seen David. David has been kept from Kirk, and in that film, we are somewhat led to believe that Captain Kirk was maybe not necessarily a deadbeat dad, but he just wasn't around because he was captain of a Starfleet vessel, he was out exploring the unknown, and Carol had other thoughts, dreams. She wanted to have that family life, and Kirk just didn't want that. So we're sort of led to believe in that movie that it was Kirk's decision to not be a part of that family.
Well, you said, I did what you wanted, I stayed away.
Exactly. So Carol kept him away, kept David, and we're somewhat led to believe that, correct me if I'm wrong, David doesn't actually know that Jim Kirk is his dad in the movie. Is that a true statement?
He knows, but he's distanced himself from it, so it's not a surprise to him when he meets Kirk, but it's just this, you were never in my life, so I don't have to give you the time of day. And then by the end of the movie, he's like, proud to be your son. It's a bit of a leap.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So to bring that back to this episode and to introduce this concept of Jim Kirk having these very real, very human, emotional conversations about the family dynamic, having a son with a woman who has her own dreams and aspirations to pursue science while he has his dreams and aspirations to explore the universe. And what does that family dynamic look like? He wants to be a part of that family. He wants to be involved in David's life. I think that's great. I love this portrayal. I love this story build out of Kirk in this. This is great stuff.
It's already becoming too difficult, though. He misses the rendezvous by a couple of days, so he doesn't get to see his son this time. And you can extrapolate that as, this is going to happen a couple of more times, then Carol will be like, just stay away. This isn't good for David because he'll never know you. You'll be someone that shows up every once in a while, and it's too much upheaval.
He's got that little bauble.
I like that, yeah. And that's a classic absentee father thing.
Really is.
They bring back a present to make up for their lack of affection kind of thing. I've heard of a few friends of mine and things where their dad was never around or their mum was never around, and yeah, they would come back and there'd be a small gift, and it's fine that you're away for a week because here's a toy. You got a toy out of it. So when you're, I don't know, David's age, it seems great. Yeah. It's this exciting thing that your dad's brought home from somewhere. And the conversation he has with the manifestation of Sam about that parenting style, and he's like, oh, dad always brought those home, and Kirk has accidentally become his father.
Yeah.
He hasn't even realized it.
Yeah, it's not until Sam says it that he's like, oh, wow.
Not the real Sam, though. So Kirk knows this on some level, but he's not conscious of it. But this is forcing him to confront it. And that's the one thing that's missing. He doesn't have a conversation with the real Sam later in the episode. It should have been that instead of Uhura.
I agree with you. Again, Strange New Worlds, having the opportunity to build out these characters is really great. I think the reflections on Kirk and his family dynamic when he sees Sam, the manifestation of Sam beaming into rescue, and they have those conversations, and Kirk asks Sam, how do you do it? It's really good character work. And this is the stuff that I think a lot of fans have been expecting of Strange New Worlds. There's been a lot of talk about, like, okay, they did 4.5 Vulcans, okay, they did the musical episode. They've tried a couple different things, but when we talk about it and we say, oh, this was a great episode, it's these character building things that they're doing that just uplift it so much.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that they shouldn't be spending the time on Kirk because it isn't his show, but he's here and we might as well get something good out of it while he is here.
And Paul Wesley is pretty good as Kirk.
Oh yeah, he is. He's way too old for the 25-year-old Kirk.
Sure.
He is good. All sorts of weird age stuff, because we talked about Scotty before, how Scotty's younger than Kirk and he's not supposed to be. Which is where Strange New Worlds behaves like a reboot when they've made these changes. But his conversation with his own perception of Sam was very revealing, and on some level, they must have had the conversation about, I phone my sons every night so they know that I'm here. I contact them every night. And it's something that they've changed a bit in Star Trek, because it used to be that if you're far enough away, all you can do is send an audio or video message and it will get there in a few weeks maybe. But they've never had any issue doing any real-time contact from things far away. But it's this idea of Sam is in his kids' lives, even though he's not physically in their lives. He makes sure that he speaks to them every night, so he's there for them. You have to wonder why he's chosen to be on a starship rather than be with them, because when you meet Sam in the original series, well, he's dead, but they're going to a colony where Sam lives with his wife and kids. So the suggestion would be that that's what Sam does, and he'll come to decide that himself. If he's ever in the damn show for real, he might decide that I can't be away from my kids anymore. I'm going to go and take up a research posting somewhere where those weird plastic pizza aliens are going to kill me at some point. But I don't know that yet, so it's fine. Not everybody gets to know their fate in 10 years.
That's true. Man, going back to the gore thing, him getting sucked out, that explosive decompression, that was gruesome.
Yeah, it was. And Kirk seeing that his family are getting ripped from
literally.
Him. And he believes that the Kirk name is cursed in some way. They don't really go into why he thinks that, but they do have the conversation about their dad. They did in season 2 as well. They talked about how Jim Kirk is the favourite son because he's most like their dad. And in this, they do, when was the last time you heard from Dad? And they both say birthday. And obviously, it's not the real Sam. I don't know why I keep saying that, because it should be obvious by this point, but it's not the real Sam. But it's clearly a conversation they've had loads of times, or they know it. And Sam saying, I've got a box full of these things. So Kirk, again, on some level knows, I've turned into him. And the closure he gets is that he resolves to try and do the nightly phone call. And I imagine that's not going to really work out for him long term.
No.
Maybe keep it up for a week or two and then it'll stop. We will know where the Carol Marcus relationship ends. And he talks about how they're not in a relationship anymore in this episode as well. They're co-parenting, but they're not together anymore, which makes it all kinds of awkward. So you could see how it's going to fade away. And at this point, he is still kind of in David's life, but he'll be too young to remember that long term. So as long as he disappears in the near future, it's easy to understand why David doesn't know him.
Yeah, that's true.
Because he'll have just forgotten.
We'll probably get a little bit more of this. They've leaned hard in this episode to showcase a little bit of who Kirk is, this particular Jim Kirk, and I suspect that we'll have a little bit more of this. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe this season, towards the end of the season, maybe towards the finale, Carol will actually make an appearance with David, and there will be a, hey, we're cutting you off, and that drives his ambition. That drives him to the Enterprise. That drives him to be best friends with Spock and to get to know this crew. Because right now, he's thinking about the future, thinking about life. Is Starfleet the right career? I have this family. I have to commit. Where am I going? So Carol's going to make the decision for him. We know this. So I suspect that may come. I would like it to come. I'll just say that.
Yeah, and at this point, he thinks he can have it all. He thinks he can do it all, but he hasn't realised that he can't yet. Which makes sense. He's a new father. He wants to be in his son's life, but he also doesn't want to sacrifice his career. So it's going to be that tension over, well, which one does he want more? And I guess the answer is that uncomfortable. He wants to be a captain more than he wants to be a dad. When David was mentioned in season 2, or Carol being pregnant was mentioned in season 2, it's pretty clear it was an accident. It wasn't supposed to happen. But obviously he's bearing the responsibility now that it has happened, and he's trying to do the right thing. Yeah, so it's going to be the whole, I think you should go off and command your starship and leave your son with me. And he's going to reluctantly say, yeah, okay.
Yep.
Which isn't a great start for the spin-off they're never going to make. And if they ever did make that spin-off, I don't think they could leave that lying forever. I feel like they would constantly nudge against that and see how far they can push it.
I think they could get there.
Maybe. But it is interesting. And did you catch La'an saying about David's going to meet his end at the end of a knife?
Yeah, and I think it's a great pivot to talk about La'an next.
That was an accurate prediction. That's how David dies.
Yeah, she literally stabs him in the gut and says, your son will die just like you, bleeding out in a dark corner of space. And that's literally what happens.
She got the prediction wrong for Kirk, though. She must have seen the deleted scenes from Generation, the original ending.
Yeah, right.
When he gets shot in the back, he doesn't get stabbed.
To be fair, she thought she was killing him right then and there.
Yeah.
But yeah, La'an, oh my gosh. Craig, how are you feeling about La'an's, I don't know what it is about her, but she's just so overly anxious about this Khan situation.
I think it's come from nowhere because she's never really been worried about that. And it's another DNA thing, isn't it? I'm worried that my DNA is going to overtake me and turn me into this monster. And it hasn't been a fixture of her character until the first episode of the season where she punches a dinosaur and she's like, I didn't feel anything. I'm worried about what I'm turning into.
Well, remember in that not great episode, 4.5 Vulcans, she turned into a Romulan and they were like, oh, well, it's because you have this predilection towards being a despot. I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but that could just mean that she's very controlling. As a security chief, she's very particular about making sure everything's right and everything's in control.
Which is fair, and we love that, but I don't think that's indicative of, hey, I want to take over the universe. And yet here on the Griffin, she is really succumbing to this ghost.
Yeah, and the ghost preys on her lack of family or the fact that Starfleet's her family. So the fact that the manifestation she sees, whether it's the real Harper or not, is kind of irrelevant, but she sees a Starfleet officer and she's offered a crew that will accept her unconditionally.
Right.
That's really tempting for her because she feels like a wolf in sheep's clothing, doesn't she, on the Enterprise?
She does. She really does. And to your point, it's not just any Starfleet officer, it's a Starfleet security officer, head of security on the Griffin, literally her rank and position. So she's looking not at herself, but her colleague, someone that she is just on a different ship.
Yeah, and she rejects any offer of help from the fake Enterprise crew where she beams Ortegas into herself.
Whoa, okay, hold on. You ever see that show, 1,000 Ways to Die? It's like an older show. That is immediately what I thought of. There's 1,000 ways to die. There's 1,000,000 ways to die in space. And that is a brutal beaming into yourself. Ugh.
Yeah, that's grim. But it's complete rejection of the emotional support that was being offered to her by the manifestations. And it's as if they were there to tempt her or to test her to see how committed she was going to be to the Enterprise crew versus the Griffin crew that had been offered to her. And you have that chilling shot in the engine room of, look at all these people that you can belong with. And that's going to be great for you. And she stabs Uhura as well, so she completely rejects that and then stabs the real Kirk.
Yeah.
Although at that point, I wasn't sure what was real anymore. So
Same.
when Kirk runs up to her, is it really him? And I think the episode does a really good job of making you question what reality is. Even when they get beamed back to the Enterprise for a couple of minutes, I was like, is this real?
Yeah.
Are they really there? Because it feels very abrupt. And we've still got, I don't know, a good 5 minutes of the episode left. Are they rescued or is this just another hallucination?
Yep, I was thinking the same thing. La'an has a great arc through this. Well, first of all, you should never split the crew up, especially in a security situation like this. You cannot rely on communications in a situation like this. We get a lot of Star Trek just because the crew members are not really doing their jobs professionally. I guess we just wouldn't have a TV show if they were. That goes for a lot of TV shows. But in this episode, I like how La'an tasks herself with the mystery. And she's running around the ship trying to figure out who Harper is, how did this happen. I thought the log entries that she played where Rose Harper is talking about what the issue is, what the situation is, which is never really fully talked about, never fully explained. I think I would have preferred if it was La'an finding different logs of different department heads. Like the captain's log, you get half of it. We were in sickbay first. Well, here's the chief medical officer's log, which doesn't give us any information. The chief engineer's log doesn't give us any information. The security officer's log, oh, here it is. Okay. And then you have the slow descent into madness that Rose Harper went through. And then you start learning she's the one. She wasn't saving the ship. She was killing everybody on the ship or whatever happened. It's not clear.
You kind of get that from Spock asking the computer. It does list however many of them were stabbed or how many were beamed into space or whatever. So you do get to find out what happened there. And there was even the point where it's like, oh, look, there's Klingon weapon signatures here and whatever, and they've barricaded this door. So it's clear that there's been other victims of the Griffin in the past.
Yeah.
It's something that people stumble onto once in a while and they don't like it when they do.
And the idea of Klingons stumbling on a ship of the dead, that's really ripe storytelling right there.
Yeah, good salvage potentially. You know, we can steal some tech. Maybe there's weapons aboard, that kind of stuff. Nope, just a ghost or whatever it is that's going to play havoc on us.
I really loved the final scene when the Griffin is being towed out and the camera zooms in and there's Harper just like, shh.
Yeah, that was quite chilling.
Yeah.
And like I say, I like that it ends on the note of, we don't know what happened here. It's just one of those weird things.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how it taints what they're out there to do. They're out there to explore, and they're very excited about the notion of discovering new things and learning more about the universe. And just every once in a while, you're going to encounter something that will scare the crap out of you and you won't be able to explain it. How do you parse that? It really, like I say, taints their mission statement, everything that they hold dear. And that's going to be a difficult thing to swallow. And Pike is very relaxed about it, but obviously he wasn't there. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to report that you stabbed Kirk. It wasn't you in your right mind. I'm not going to ruin your career over it. And let me tell you about this ghost story. I was convinced that I saw a ghost or heard a ghost.
Yeah.
And also, I've had a couple of these things that have been unable to be explained, and it's just one of those things.
There's lots of unexplained situations, yeah. How many things get classified at Starfleet? Episode 1 showed us that all these things are just classified, and we can't talk about it. We're going to send you out there on this mission, but we can't tell you why.
What are Division 12 going to do to safeguard against the haunting that's on this ship, or whatever is the play? What are they going to do?
I'm so interested. I need a novel associated with this episode. Craig.
Are they just going to send like 3 people over every once in a while and see what happens to them?
Imagine being that ensign.
You'd probably get someone that'd be like, yeah, it's all crap. I don't believe in ghosts. And it's not going to happen to me. And they're the ones that are the most scared.
Or they really are that person. Maybe it's a Tellarite or an Andorian, and they see everything for what it actually is. And they're watching their crewmates go crazy. And they're like, guys, do you not see this?
Yeah, but it can even break a Vulcan's resolve. And obviously Spock has human nurture in there as well. But it doesn't seem like anyone is exempt from whatever effect this ship has on everybody that enters it. But yeah, I wonder what Division 12 are going to do about it. That would be an interesting thing to figure out. What's happening with the Griffin? Oh, there's a lot of people dead. It's not going well.
The body count keeps stacking up, Admiral. Well, let's send another crew to investigate. No, that's why the body count keeps going up.
Eventually, someone will figure out the answer.
And it ain't going to be us. Oh, man.
But yeah, I wonder what the other ones that Pike found in his career that he couldn't find answers to.
Yeah. This is why we love Star Trek. The unanswered, the unexplainable, and it's what science fiction is for, to help explore what those things are. We don't have to have an answer, but as long as we're on for the journey, that's what we're all about.
Yeah, I didn't need an answer to this. It's just something weird that went on, and the fact that they couldn't explain it is the point. The fact that they couldn't explain it really chills them to the core. And in terms of Pike leaving what landed out of his official report, it's par for the course for Pike, but I'm just worried about how routine that's becoming, because he refused to report Mbenga's war crime last season when he found out about it.
You know, you got a good point with that.
I understand why he didn't with La'an, and if it was an isolated protocol says I should report this, but here's why I'm not going to do that. But you just expect Pike to just let his crew off with murder, almost literally in this case, and literally in the case of Mbenga last season.
Okay, I can understand not wanting to submit an official report that includes that, but there should have been some sort of, hey, La'an, we got to get you to talk to somebody about this. Just having one conversation with Nurse Chapel in sickbay after breaking her hand and not feeling anything, and now the second episode, you have this. I would think, as the captain of the Enterprise, Captain Pike, you should be concerned about the mental well-being of your security officer.
Yeah, take some time off.
Yeah, she just reported about a security officer on a ghost ship going absolutely crazy. The writing's on the wall here, my man.
Yeah, it would be concerning. If I was her boss and this was happening, I'd be very concerned, and it would be, take a few weeks off, we'll get you some counselling, and we'll get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's been in therapy before. She mentions it in the first season.
She does. But that was primarily for the Gorn-related trauma.
It was.
This is a whole new sequence, which, to be fair, I think she also doesn't want to let anyone know that she's a product of eugenics. But wait a second, her whole name.
Yeah, she probably shouldn't have the name Noonien Singh. Why didn't they just change their name?
I don't know, Craig. I'm trying to make all this work in my mind.
Well, speaking of Wrath of Khan, when Kirk eventually unearths Khan, it'll be, oh yeah, I know his descendant.
Yeah.
We all do. Spock, you dated her.
Yeah. Hey, Marla McIvers, don't worry about this.
Because in Space Seed, he's lost to history. We don't really know who he is. And then they look him up and he's like, oh, so he must be this guy.
Yeah.
He's not that famous, despite the fact he was a dictator.
Yep. I don't know. But I'm not going to relitigate that whole canon situation. I try not to think too hard about all this time travel and canon. I'm trying not to be a canonista, if you will.
It's unresolvable. That's the problem.
It really is. Yes, it's frustrating. I will admit it is frustrating. If it serves a good story, I can get behind it. All they had to do was not admit to La'an's name. If that was just hidden and just kept private, maybe the audience would know about it if she talked about it privately with others, but keep it hidden from the general Starfleet thing. Just like Una hid the fact that she's Illyrian.
And you could remove all that from La'an's character and not really change a lot, because you could still have her traits be the same. And you could even have her have remnants of augmented DNA from her ancestry.
Sure.
It just doesn't have to be directly from Khan. It can be from some augment that survived and procreated, and here we go. It's too far in now to fix it. It's just going to be funny to look at Space Seed now and think they should know exactly who they found here. But anyway, good episode. And the reflection point at the end, I liked Pike saying, space is weird. And that's just part of the way it is. And we have to find some way of dealing with that.
Yeah.
But I don't think Pike's ever really been challenged in the same way that, say, Kirk is in this episode, or anybody else. Obviously, he has his own future to worry about. It'd be interesting to see what would happen if he was really on the Griffin, because I would really like to see Pike pushed to the edge in some way, because he's also level-headed.
I hope we get that. They've been playing it real safe with Pike lately. Season 3, the dude was barely on screen. I understand filming, he had special circumstances.
Yeah, he had his kid and stuff.
Yeah, and that's fine, but you gotta give us some real meaty Pike stuff, because that's the primary challenge to this show. And if I were to think about it in such a way, it seems like the writers are scared to approach that. They've obviously filmed, everything's done, they've already broken the sets down, blah, 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 blah. Show's over, go home. But episode 2, season 4, we're getting close to the end of this whole show, and we're not diving into Pike.
Yeah, and we do get a sense of how he might have been affected when you see Spock's hallucination of him.
Sure.
He's like, I love this ship. I can escape my future, and I can cut my hand off when I'm cooking and stuff. It's great.
Yeah, cutting the fingers off.
I wasn't fooled when the Enterprise crew turned up.
No,
at the halfway-ish point. I thought, they're not going to be real.
It was the transporter glitch that clued me in immediately that it wasn't real.
But it does a good job of making you doubt what's real, like I said. So when they do actually get rescued, is this real?
Yeah.
And as much as Kirk should have spoken to Sam, because why didn't you do that? Why didn't they have a scene together? You'd already paid him to be in the episode, clearly, so you might as well use him. But I did like the callback to when Uhura thought she was going crazy, and it was the cookies, how Kirk and Uhura bonded over that in season 2.
Right.
So that was a good callback, but it should have been Sam.
Yeah, I agree.
You could even have Uhura walk in and give him a cookie, and then say, I'll leave you two to talk, or whatever. And then they have a chat about fatherhood, and it's the real them, and Kirk looking to understand how Sam does it, because he has some idea of how he does it, but he doesn't really know it.
But I do like that they left it with Uhura opening the channel and saying, oh, hey, I had to get special permission. I dropped this through this relay channel, and if you call at just the right time, you should be able to get it to work.
And they leave it ambiguous over whether Carol picks up.
Yeah, and then the slow camera pulls back. Well, that was nice, really touching. And for an episode that leans so heavily on the spookiness, leaving it with that family sort of feeling was, I think, smart.
Yeah, it was a very uneasy ending. Kirk, is he going to get to speak to Carol and see his son on the screen?
He's been freaking out about it the entire episode, and to keep it from him keeps us in that mode of suspense.
It was a nice bit of introspection from Chapel as well. She's like, I don't like to eat in the mess hall because it reminds me of the war. She can't be talking about the bar. That's not the mess hall, is it? Is there another place they eat? Because she's never out of the bar.
I don't know if I mentioned it in the previous episode or a different one, but I do think they spend a lot of time in the bar on the ship. I get it. People decompressing after work. And of course, Next Gen had 10 Forward, mess hall on the original series, but I don't like the consistent glorification of them drinking after their shift. I just feel like it's inappropriate in Star Trek.
I don't know. We would always have a few alcoholic beverages after work, especially Scotty. He'd go for a whiskey after work. Plus, you still have synthahol, I imagine, at this point.
I don't want to sound like a prude or anything like that, or a stick in the mud. It's fine when it's in context, but to have a lot of episodes showcase the command crew always drinking together, and I've complained about this previously, where this crew feels very familial. They work together, sure, but do you respect each other? Because sometimes it doesn't look as though they respect each other.
Well, yeah, the hierarchy is very flimsy. You had it in the previous episode. I can't remember if I brought it up when we discussed the first episode, but you have that bit where Pike says, okay, here's how I'm going to approach this first contact situation. And everybody's just mocking him behind him. And he's like, you're not helping or whatever. And it's just banter. But he should turn around and be like, I've made my decision quiet.
Yeah, I get it's fun, and it's probably fun in the writer's room. It's probably fun when they're filming it. But there's a sort of sense of discomfort that I have when I see this stuff happening. It's just a minor quibble.
I've seen people talk about this. When people were writing the original series and Next Generation, those writers, a lot of them had served time in the military.
Yeah.
So they understood these hierarchies, and they understood that you can have a laugh and a joke, but when orders are given, they have to be followed.
Exactly.
And there's respect for the chain of command and stuff. So there's only so far you can push it to your captain before they'll stamp you out and tell you to shut up. Whereas a lot of the writers now will be coming from more of a college or corporate environment where more open discussion is encouraged, which doesn't gel with Starfleet.
Yeah.
I mean, it can to an extent. Pike uses his crew's first names when he's giving orders. It's like, warp sick, Erica, or whatever. And she doesn't really say yes, sir, or anything like that. So it's very casual.
Extremely relaxed. Extremely casual. Yeah.
Which always rubs me up the wrong way, because some of the things I liked was you see the crew let their hair down. In quiet moments, they banter away and stuff. But when things start going down, that's when the chain of command asserts itself. And how many times did you see Sisko yelling, shut up, we need to deal with this situation now, or Kirk doing it? Picard always kept that distance during the Next Generation, so he would never really get involved in that stuff. He would save that for whenever Admirals visit, or Crusher, or to an extent Riker. But anybody below that, he wouldn't go for a drink with his crew because he was their boss, and that was it. But the bar being such a common location in Strange New Worlds, and the only time I really noticed it here was, like I say, when Chapel talked about how she doesn't eat in the mess hall, and I'm thinking, is there another mess hall? Because we've seen them have burgers and stuff in the bar.
I don't know.
Is that the mess hall, or is there another place they go eat?
I thought it was, but she's in there all the time.
Yeah, so your point doesn't mean anything. We saw her in there the last episode. It was an interesting bit of connection anyway, this whole, I had an experience and it made me feel uncomfortable with having lunch in the mess hall. And I understand why you didn't want to come at sickbay, because you were mutilated in a similar looking room on another ship. So fair enough.
Fair enough.
But yeah, good episode. Last episode I gave it a 7 out of 10. This one I gave it 8.5.
Nice, an 8.5. I rated this one at an 8 as well, 8 out of 10. The only down points for me was I personally would have preferred a little more insight into the Griffin itself and how it came to be this ghost ship. I'm happy to not get answers, but that's the back and forth here. And it definitely scored points for me in terms of how they handled Kirk's story and how they handled his general anxiety and his struggles and that whole shakeout. And of course, La'an's, as she stabbed him, this is how your son is going to die. I was like, holy shit, that is powerful stuff. I think the storytelling here was really strong and everything worked really well for me. The goriness, the visceralness, showing Sam Kirk getting sucked out of the bridge, that was incredible. It makes for great television watching. And they tried to do a spooky zombie episode. That didn't work out very well, but I'm glad they tried this. This was awesome.
And how everyone's rationality was overridden as well, where Kirk was convinced his baby was in the console, even though that's ridiculous. So he digs through it and then ruins their only chance to perhaps get help. And the shuttle gets blown up on mysterious circumstances as well. All that stuff. Very good horror experience. It's up there with Star Trek's horror experience, just in terms of the craft and the execution of it.
Yeah, definitely.
I was definitely reminded most of Empok Nor, because Empok Nor is similar. Although in that one, it's the enhanced Cardassians and then Garrick hunting everybody down.
Yeah, true.
That's a great episode as well. But yeah, this is a good one. It's good to see that they are capable of this. More of this. Maybe not more horror, but more of this kind of tension. I looked up the writer. He's worked on Supernatural.
Oh, okay.
He's worked on this show since season 1, I think, but he did a lot of work on Supernatural. He wrote like 40 episodes of it or something.
Bringing that to this series and to this episode in particular, well done.
Supernatural didn't often actually do horror, funnily enough. They were fighting ghosts, but it was routine. They weren't trying to scare you all that often. But certainly he has the chops for that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you for joining us for another exciting episode of We Are Starfleet covering Strange New Worlds. You can check out all of our episodes at wearestarfleetpod.com, and you can find us on any podcast feed. If you're listening to this, the same feed will allow you to subscribe. Please do connect with us on the socials at Starfleet Pod on Blue Sky, Instagram and Threads. Give us a 5-star rating. and leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought of this episode. Let us know what you're thinking of the season so far. Let us know what you thought of what we thought of the episode. And thank you for listening. We're now part of the Trek Geeks podcast network. It's our new home. We're very excited about it. And there's a plethora of Star Trek themed shows on that network that you can listen to, including but not limited to Crusher Convo, the Brian Donahue podcast, Sci-Fi Sisters, and much, much more. I've been your host, Craig. I've been joined by Mike, and we are going to go and sleep with the lights on because it's very scary out there at night.
Spooky. I definitely don't hear any babies crying. There's no babies.
I don't hear any babies crying.
No babies.
Maybe I hear something that's telling me to kill things.
Something dragging along the floor. Oh, what was that?
I'm reminded of a Legends of Tomorrow episode where there's a hellhound running around the ship and it says, the dog's telling me to kill you guys, and he's making some really good points.
On that note,
hit it.